You know, there was a point in time where Applejack was actually my favorite pony. That's not something I admit very often, so I won't be surprised if even those of you who have been with this channel for a while now haven't heard it before, but it's true. When I was new to the series, when I had just seen the first season, I had a certain fascination with AJ. I'm not entirely sure what it was either. The accent, the design, the hat. It certainly wasn't the episodes. Applejack's Season 1 offerings are few and far between, and none of them ever really spoke to me in a major way. But thinking about it, that might have been exactly it. She had the least presence in Season 1. She seemed the least loved by the writers. And that perhaps gave the impression that with her there were greater depths yet to see, further aspects of her character left to explore. It seems weird saying it now, but Applejack I think had an air of mystery to her in those early days as compared to the others. A certain something which had me filled with excitement just to see what they'd do with her. Then Season 2 came, and Applejack basically entered into a freefall for me. Part of the reason was that Rarity, who was my second favorite at the time, forcibly stole my heart once Sisterhood of Social hit. Mostly though, it was just that Applejack, as we saw more of her, just proved to not be very interesting. She had her moments, sure. I found her highly relatable in Last Roundup, and funny in Super Speedy Cider Squeezy, but even in those episodes, the ones where it's her writing to Celestia, she still manages to feel something like an accessory to everything else going on. I know the background pony jokes, which really started at their stride around that time, are way overplayed at this point, but it was never difficult for me to understand why they were being made. And across the next several seasons, Applejack didn't manage to get any more interesting to me. Granted, I think a lot of the problem is that the aspects of her life which would be the most interesting to explore, namely her parents and how their absence has shaped her life and her family, are effectively barred from the writers. But whatever the case, as new layers were added to Rainbow Dash's character and Pinkie Pie was made increasingly more sympathetic with each new episode she got, Applejack remained almost entirely static, save for perhaps becoming a bit goofier at times. And it's a shame, too, because Applejack still could be, and still can be, interesting. The main attraction last season, one of my very favorite episodes, showed her at her best, keenly demonstrating the maturity and integrity which still do keep her character appealing. When an Applejack episode comes around, I want it to be like that one, and remind me why I used to love the beheaded farm horse so much. And, to put it plainly, Applejacks Day Off is not the episode to do that. With its ponderous pacing, bland premise, and absolute dearth of effective humor, excitement, or drama, this episode stands as the first major misstep of Season 6, and also probably the least engaging and least interesting episode of MLP ever. Which I know sounds like this big, preposterously overblown claim, but yeah, I've thought it through, and that's how I feel. There has never been an episode where I've cared less about the things I was watching than this one. I may hate It Ain't Easy Being Breezy's, but at least the rage it provoked in me was an emotion. This episode, on the other hand, just left me cold and empty. But why is that? Where does it go wrong? Well, I think the first problem is in the combination of the ponies used. I have made it no secret that I don't really care for the Rarejack ship, but even disregarding that, I would say that despite how frequently it's been used, the combination of Applejack and Rarity is one that has rarely proven very successful. Sure, they do have enough solid scenes together, such as the ones in Sister of Social, that I do buy that they're good friends. And there also is Simple Ways, which I just find utterly delightful in every regard. But more often, the combination is just not very compelling. Look Before You Sleep would be nearly unwatchable if Twilight wasn't there with her adorable silliness, while their annoying and rather pointless scenes in Tradia drag that episode down in a major way. And when they're not bickering, when they're more in accord, such as in this episode and Made in Manehattan, the interactions tend to feel just somewhat inert. Here especially, there was a major lack of chemistry on display. They're in scenes together, but there's no memorable interactions, no interplay. Applejack just reluctantly stumbles through her not actually a day off, while Rarity's lines are mostly her complaining. Contrast with, say, the Season 4 and Season 5 episodes Applejack shared with Pinkie Pie. The interactions there are priceless. They demonstrate that the bond shared between the two is important, while also bringing the best out of both ponies in the process. Here we see Rarity stress that spot time with AJ is important, but we don't get a very keen sense of why. And that touches on another problem: characterization. Rarity, I think, is the worst off. She just seems so limited in her role here, nagging her way through the entire episode. And it's weird because Rarity, as we've seen her, is a pony with a work ethic to match Applejack's. Sure, her enjoying some spa time is nothing new, but all things considered, she's very much a business before pleasure type, which just makes her absolute insistence that Applejack take time off from work when she doesn't want to feel weird to me. It makes me think that the role really might have been better suited for a pony like Pinkie or Rainbow Dash, where we wouldn't be expecting patience and understanding at all. Then there's Applejack herself. She had a few good character moments. It's nice to see her going out of her way to help others by repairing the pipe at the spa. Her suit-up scene at the start of the montage is kind of cool. But yeah, this is just silly. Like, extremely so. I mean, I suppose I appreciate the silliness to some extent, because by the time she starts making the faces, I'm bored out of my mind, so it's great to have something diverting happen. But it just makes Applejack look like an idiot. Rarity says this.
And I suppose if it weren't for our unsuccessful time at the spa, none of us would have realized it.
But I kinda gotta roll my eyes there, because, yeah, even without the spa events in the picture at all, AJ just has to do this routine in front of anyone else once, and I'm pretty sure they're going to ask what the hell is all that about. I mean, even the family. It's kind of strange that no one would have questioned it by now. I get the bizarre ritual has its place in how the apples operate, what with how the Zap apples work and all, but seriously, precocious Apple Bloom never took a questioning look at what her sister was doing here. I can see where they're coming from, I suppose, but it's just too much, exaggerated too far. Her explaining the lesson of the episode while demonstrating that she's yet to take it to heart, I get the feeling it's supposed to be funny because of the massive irony, but instead it just compounds the dumb. There's needing an outside eye, and then there's just being willfully blind to the blaringly obvious. And while we're on that, yes, I will acknowledge that the lesson here is a decent one. Getting stuck in a routine with needless steps, it's a real thing that happens to people. That's all well and good, but one thing I've always said when it comes to MLP is that I'm here to be entertained, not moralized at. A good moral can make a good episode better, but it can never save a less than good episode for me. Also, yeah, I think it could have been delivered better. Until we actually see Applejack's pig feeding routine 16 minutes into the episode, we're left absolutely mystified about how any of it connects. Because this isn't a problem we've seen Applejack ever having before, and in fact we come to the episode assuming she does understand efficiency. So when we're told at the start that she's been having work pile up on the farm, it doesn't occur to us that it's because she's doing something wrong. Sure, it's foreshadowed when Twilight gets the list, but we don't revisit that again until after the whole entire interminable spa sequence, and through said sequence we're just left wondering what relevance any of what happens there has to anything. Then when it does come together, it's not like it's even this aha moment where the puzzle is complete. No, with how they do it, it's more like, really? Really, Applejack? Come on, you're supposed to be the grounded one, and this is your job. You should know better. It just doesn't work very well. And all that brings me to the episode's biggest problem, the pacing. It's so slow. Last week we had an episode which had like 6 different things happening all at once, nested into 2 different framing devices, and it managed to feel surprisingly natural. Here we follow the same character in the same sitting for nearly 9 minutes. Why? You know there's a problem with how a story is structured when we stay with the characters as they walk down a hallway, and it isn't like some horror story going for creeping suspense. That we do have what should be a B-plot setup with Twilight and Spike just makes it feel worse, too. We have something to cut away to. Why are we staying with just this? Especially since more cuts to the Twilight stuff could have provided some much-needed humor to this episode while also making it feel more cohesive. Just picture it. Spike reading to Twilight, okay, now you have to make funny faces and balk like a chicken. We know it's on the list. Why can't we see Twilight's reaction to that? Her thinking that Spike's trolling her and demanding to see the list, and then her briefly wondering if AJ is trolling her, and then her doing it. It would have been way funnier than when AJ does it out of nowhere at the end, and it could have helped make the episode. But no, we stay in the spa, following up a lengthy sequence about deducing a plumbing problem with a montage about fixing it. Which, yeah, that's another thing. Leaking plumbing, flagging farm efficiency. Who thought it was a good idea to have an episode where these are the main problems that the ponies encounter? I mean, really, it's a fantasy world full of magic and talking ponies, and we're going this mundane? Why? I can't help but picture the target audience's reaction to this one. Are 6 to 12-year-olds really going to respond to Applejack improving your irrigation system? The simple fact that this was ever greenlighted in the first place becomes all the more baffling to me the more I think about it. The writers really must have no good ideas for Applejack episodes at all if this is what we're getting for them. Though, to be fair, even such mundanity could have been made interesting if there was at least something here to keep our attention, but there isn't. There is no suspense. Applejack discovers a problem, she fixes it. There's no drama. Rarity complains, Applejack gets kind of huffy, but nothing happens character-wise. There's no humor. Well, very little, and most of what is halfway amusing certainly doesn't come from the writing, but rather the voice acting, what with some of Tabitha's line reads and the amusing accents on the spa ponies, and, well, the animation, what with the all too infrequent amusing background events. There is nothing to make us care. I've seen people say, well, it's a slice of life episode. The point is just to spend some time with these characters in their day-to-day lives. Not every episode has to be an event. You're expecting too much here. Sorry, but no. There's a difference between expecting too much and having some baseline standard for entertainment. And the episode simply failed to measure up. Sure, there are the colorful ponies I like on the screen, and there are bits here and there worth a chuckle, and it's certainly better than watching a blank screen for 22 minutes. But when it fails to engage this badly, and when I can't work up an interest in anything that happens, then no, I'm certainly not going to give the episode a pass. For Slice of Life to work, the time we spend with the characters still has to be engaging. One of my favorite episodes in the entire series is Mod Pie, which is about as slice of life as you can get, what with a simple premise about the ponies just meeting and spending time with Pinky's relative. And yet, it's high on personality and has some of the best comedy ever from MLP, while also managing to be emotionally engaging in how it portrays the character relationships. Slice of Life is not a license to be boring and free of any event. On the contrary, it should mean that there is more room to insert personality, humor, and meaningful character moments. If the point is to spend time with these characters, and the time spent with them isn't actually worthwhile, then it fails. But there was at least one thing that this episode had that I really did enjoy, and that was Dashie here. Seriously love how Rarity has taken to calling her that this season, by the way. But yeah, Rainbow Dash's scenes were really, really cute. I've always been a fan of the idea that she has more traditionally feminine interests, which she keeps secret due to her wanting to keep her sporty, cool image. It just fits her character, what with its underlying hidden sensitivities. And yes, I know some people have said otherwise, that this in fact contradicts what we saw in Ponyville Confidential and all that. I don't think it does. Watching this scene, I don't think the reason Rainbow bolts is that she legitimately hates having her hooves touched. No, that's just an excuse. She wants to try it, but she just has all this anxiety about doing something against her image while her friends watch. For someone like her, backing out last minute like that just makes sense. I actually really like the thought that since then, she's gone back, tried it, and come to enjoy it, albeit while still not telling her friends. Honestly, considering the fact that Rainbow Dash's apprehension about others seeing her do something against her image is something we've seen previously, while Applejack's problems here seem to have been invented for the episode, it feels like the episode inadvertently provided more real development for Rainbow than the character it was supposed to be about. And that is really indicative of yet another core problem here. I like the unpopular Sun Pony to watch over me despite what many consider a breach in Applejack's character, because I can see where it might come from. It was somewhat foreshadowed in bridal gossip, and in connecting the dots via headcanons about how the family might function without the parents in the picture, I'm able to explain to myself satisfactorily why Applejack might act like this. Ultimately, I'd say that episode adds dimension to AJ's character for me. This one, though, it adds exactly nothing. The issue AJ faces, whether it's realistic or not, is not interesting. It's introduced and solved in the space of a single episode, and contributes nothing to her character overall in the end. Ultimately, Applejacks Day Off can be most succinctly described as the absolute antithesis to the episode immediately before it. While the Saddle Row review was a bold, high-energy statement of an episode impossible to ignore, this was a dull, unintelligible murmur without anything to really say in the first place. Moving forward, I can only hope it's the statement which is more indicative of what remains for us to see in Season 6 and beyond. This has been a RarityDash review, thanks for watching, and see you soon.